The Sol System. The Warhammer 40k galaxy is a place where entire star systems vanish overnight, and hell doubles as the highway between worlds. So pack your bags, ignore every travel advisory, and let's tour the most important regions in the grimdark future, starting from the Sol System. At the heart of Segmentum Solar, the central hub of all Imperial space, sits the Sol System. Home to Terra, Mars, Luna, and the Astronomicon, it serves as the core of the Imperium. Every command issued by the High Lords and every Grand Crusade can be traced back to this one small corner of the galaxy. The Sol System is home to several of the Imperium's most important worlds. Terra is humanity's political and spiritual capital, while Mars serves as the headquarters of the Adeptus Mechanicus, whose forged cities manufacture everything from Las Guns to Titans. Luna protects the approach to Terra with vast shipyards, fleets, and fortress stations, while Titan is the secret home of the Grey Knights. Beyond them, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn are packed with naval bases, dockyards, and military installations. Together, these worlds support a population measured in the quadrillions, making the Sol System one of the most heavily populated and heavily defended regions in the entire galaxy. In a nutshell, the Sol System is a pressure cooker of humanity and war. Terra and Mars sit at its core, swollen with billions of lives and industries that never sleep. The outer reaches are mined with void traps and star forts, and yet the real danger is the endless tide of pilgrims and bureaucrats pouring in, carrying whispers of rebellion and corruption. From Terra, the Emperor of Mankind ended the Age of Strife, pulling old Earth out of chaos and uniting humanity's birthplace, then launching the Great Crusade to reclaim the scattered worlds. Still, it was only the beginning, because the Sol System's greatest trial came later, at the end of the Horus Heresy, when the War Master Horus led a massive force straight to Terra and turned the cradle of mankind into a battlefield. The siege of Terra was a storm that ripped through the Imperium's heart when the Emperor killed his own son and lost his mortal life in the process. His broken body was placed on the Golden Throne, and from that moment, humanity's empire has been sustained by a failing machine and a ruler who cannot rise from his throne. The Warp. If the Sol System is the Imperium's heart, then the Warp is its highway, but stepping into it feels less like travel and more like being thrown into a storm of knives. Ships plunge into a dimension where time runs wrong, where hours on board can mean years outside, and where every emotion ever felt by mortals churns into tides of psychic violence. Inside, the air hums with pressure that isn't air, shadows flicker without light, and crew members swear they hear voices whispering promises or threats. Navigators stare into the madness, steering by the Astronomicon's faint beacon, while Geller fields groan against the weight of demons pressing at the hull. Warp rifts are the immaterium tearing its way into reality, wounds where the psychic ocean floods into the material world. To those nearby, it feels like standing at the edge of a nightmare made flesh, skies boiling into green fire, shadows thick enough to choke, or lakes of pus bubbling with demonic shapes. Some rifts last only moments, others centuries, and everyone is a doorway for chaos. Despite all that, the Imperium has no choice but to use it. When systems fail, ships disappear, arrive centuries late, or never emerge at all. In Warhammer 40k, the road between the stars is quite literally a trip through hell. Some people do make it through the warp alive, they just tend to arrive with fewer crewmates and more trauma. The Webway. Hidden behind ancient gates scattered across the galaxy lies the Webway, an enormous network of tunnels built millions of years ago by the Old Ones. Separate from the warp itself, the Webway allows its users to cross vast distances without exposing themselves to warp storms or the madness that comes with traveling through chaos. Today, much of the Webway is controlled by the Aeldari, although large sections have been corrupted or disappeared altogether. The Drukhari use it to launch lightning raids from Commorragh, while the mysterious Harlequins guard its deepest secrets. Somewhere within its impossible passages also lies the Black Library, a hidden repository of knowledge containing the history of chaos and countless other forgotten truths. The Webway almost became humanity's future. During the Horus Heresy, the Emperor secretly began building a human entrance beneath the Imperial Palace, hoping to free the Imperium from relying on the warp forever, but Magnus the Red accidentally shattered the project's defenses while trying to warn the Emperor of Horus's betrayal, allowing demons to flood the unfinished network. The Emperor was forced to fight a hidden war beneath Terra, and humanity lost what may have been its only chance to escape the dangers of warp travel. The Great Rift. For more than 10,000 years, the Eye of Terror was the largest wound in reality. Then the galaxy got a much bigger one, known as the Great Rift or the Cicatrix Maledictum. This enormous warp storm stretches across the galaxy from the Eye of Terror toward the Eastern Fringe, cutting through multiple segmentums and leaving destruction in its wake. The Great Rift was born at the end of Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade. After centuries of war, Cadia finally fell, and the ancient Necron pylons that had helped hold back the warp were destroyed. With nothing left to contain them, warp energies erupted across the galaxy, ripping open reality itself. Entire star systems vanished behind raging warp storms, while others found themselves cut off from the rest of humanity almost overnight. The Imperium was split into two halves. On one side lies Imperium Sanctus, where the Astronomicon still shines and Terra remains within reach. On the other is Imperium Nihilis, a vast region where the beacon is weak or completely invisible. Worlds trapped there can go years without contact, reinforcements, or supplies, and many have simply disappeared into darkness. Heads up, in this region expect severe travel delays and occasional demonic invasions. Your destination may no longer exist by the time you arrive. The Eye of Terror. Long before the Great Rift split the galaxy in two, there was the Eye of Terror. Located in Segmentum Obscurus, this colossal warp storm dominates the northwestern reaches of the galaxy like a permanent scar in reality. On star charts, it appears as an enormous swirling wound where the boundary between real space and the warp has all but collapsed. Time, space, and the laws of physics mean very little here. The Eye of Terror was created over 10,000 years before the Imperium existed, during the fall of the Eldari. As their civilization descended into unimaginable excess, their collective psychic corruption gave birth to the chaos god Slaanesh. The resulting psychic shockwave consumed the heart of the Eldari Empire and tore a permanent hole between the warp and real space. What was once the center of the greatest civilization in the galaxy became the largest stronghold of chaos. Today, the Eye is home to demon worlds and chaos warbands. Traitor legions camp here after the Horus Heresy. Rather than a single empire, it is a patchwork of rival kingdoms, each ruled by powerful chaos lords. This isn't the best place for a pit stop. Ultramar. On the eastern side of Segmentum Ultima is the realm of the Ultramarines and one of the most stable regions in the Imperium. Once known as the 500 Worlds, Ultramar is more than just a space marine home territory. It is a functioning empire with thriving worlds, efficient government, and strong defenses, built around the ideals of its founder, Roboute Guilliman. Ultramar was established during the Great Crusade after Guilliman reunited the human worlds around his homeworld of Macragge. While much of the Imperium struggled with corruption and inefficiency, Ultramar became proof that humanity could still build civilizations, even in the grim darkness of the far future. It survived the Horus Heresy largely intact, but it became the battleground for the Plague Wars, as Mortarion and the Death Guard attempted to drown Guilliman's realm in disease and corruption. Today, Ultramar serves as the center of Guilliman's efforts to rebuild the Imperium. He began reforming the Empire by launching the Indomitus Crusade and introducing the Primaris Space Marines. The Eastern Fringe. The Eastern Fringe represents the farthest reaches of the galaxy, where the Imperium's grip starts to loosen and the vast unknown takes over. This area is characterized by immense distances, isolated sectors, and a rather flimsy Imperial infrastructure, resulting in a region that remains only lightly populated. It stands as one of the last frontiers of the 41st millennium. This isolation has paved the way for entirely new powers to emerge. The most notable among them is the Tau Empire, with its homeworld of Tau nestled within the Eastern Fringe. Through a series of sphere expansions, the Tau have turned a select few worlds into one of the galaxy's most rapidly expanding civilizations, establishing septs, colonies, and client states throughout the region. But then, the Tau aren't the only players in this vast expanse. The crude homeworld of Pek, isolated Imperial frontier worlds, Orc empires, rogue traitor enclaves, and dormant Necron tomb worlds are all scattered throughout the Fringe. It was also from this direction that Hive Fleet Behemoth first launched its assault on the galaxy, followed by Tyranid invasions. In other words, the Eastern Fringe is the sweet spot where you get snuffed out sooner rather than later. The Pariah Nexus. Deep in the eastern reaches of the galaxy is a growing region controlled by the Necrons. At first glance, it looks like ordinary Imperial space, but across entire sectors, immense blackstone pylons suppress the warp itself, creating a place where psychic powers weaken, warp travel becomes unreliable, and even normal emotions begin to fade. The Pariah Nexus is led by the Saracon dynasty under the Silent King, who returned to the galaxy after millions of years in exile. His goal is far greater than conquering planets. By expanding the Nexus, the Necrons hope to cut the warp's influence over reality itself, weakening chaos and reshaping the galaxy on their own terms. For the Imperium, the Pariah Nexus is a nightmare unlike any other. Astropathic messages fail, psychers lose their abilities, and entire populations become emotionally hollow as the warp is stripped away. Octarius. Home to one of the largest Orc empires in the galaxy, its countless worlds were already locked in constant warfare long before the Imperium made it the center of one of its most disastrous gambles. When Hive Fleet Leviathan threatened nearby Imperial territory, Inquisitor Cryptman devised what seemed like a brilliant plan. By luring the Tyranids into Octarius, he hoped the galaxy's two greatest killing machines would destroy each other. At first, it appeared to work. The Tyranids invaded, the Orcs welcomed the fight, and entire planets disappeared beneath battles so vast that neither side had any intention of retreating. There was just one problem. Orcs become stronger through endless war, while Tyranids evolve by consuming the enemies they defeat. Instead of eliminating two existential threats, the Imperium trapped them in a conflict that forged both into even deadlier versions of themselves. Every victory fed the Tyranid hive fleets with fresh biomass, while every surviving Orc became bigger, meaner, and more battle-hardened than before. The war eventually reached its climax when the Swarmlords slew the Overfiend of Octarius, allowing Hive Fleet Leviathan to gain the upper hand and consume much of the Empire. Even so, the fighting never truly stopped. Across Octarius, surviving orcs still wage endless war against the Tyranids, ensuring the region remains one of the bloodiest battlefields in the galaxy, and a lasting reminder that, in Warhammer 40k, even the cleverest Imperial plan can make everything worse. And if you ever find yourself stranded here, hearing roaring in one direction and chittering in the other, don't bother choosing a side. To both orcs and Tyranids, you're just lunch with legs. Commorragh. Hidden deep within the ancient Webway lies Commorragh, the dark city of the Drukhari. Calling it a city is almost misleading. It's a vast labyrinth of interconnected realms and stolen planets that have been stitched together over millions of years. Existing entirely outside real space, it has grown so enormous that it rivals entire stellar empires in sheer size. Yet most of the galaxy will never even know it exists. Those unfortunate enough to find it almost never leave. When the fall of the Eldari gave birth to Slaanesh, many of the Empire's nobles escaped into the Webway. They survived the apocalypse, but not its consequences. Their souls are constantly drained by the chaos god they helped create, forcing them to prolong their lives by feeding on terror and suffering of others. Every raid launched into real space is ultimately a hunt for fresh victims to replenish the Dark City's endless appetite. Commorragh itself is a place where reality bends to cruelty. Rival cabals wage shadow wars for power, gladiatorial witch cults entertain bloodthirsty crowds with spectacular massacres, and the homunculus covens conduct grotesque experiments that blur the line between science and nightmare. Towering above them all is Astrobel Vecht, whose schemes have kept him master of the Dark City through assassination and overwhelming displays of force. Travel tip: if someone in Commorragh promises you'll live forever, they're technically telling the truth. They just forgot to mention you'll be screaming the entire time. The Halo Stars. Beyond the outer edge of the Milky Way lies the Halo Stars, one of the last parts of the galaxy the Imperium barely understands. Unlike the Eastern Fringe or the Segmentums, this isn't a region filled with thriving worlds and busy trade routes. Imperial space becomes scattered out here, the Astronomicon grows faint, and reliable warp routes become harder to find. Most of what lies beyond has never been properly explored. That hasn't stopped people from trying. Rogue traders, explorator fleets, and ambitious crusades have spent thousands of years pushing into the Halo Stars, hoping to uncover lost civilizations or forgotten treasures. Instead, they've found isolated human worlds that survived thousands of years without Imperial contact, ancient alien ruins nobody can identify, and the infamous Halo devices, mysterious artifacts that can dramatically extend a person's life while slowly turning them into something no longer human. Some of the Imperium's oldest mysteries also point toward this frontier. The Rangdan Genocides, one of the bloodiest wars of the Great Crusade, are widely believed to have begun somewhere beyond these stars. The Ghoul Stars, one of the most feared regions in the entire setting, also lie within the Halo Stars. The Halo Stars matter because they remind us that, for all the Imperium's power, humanity still hasn't explored its own galaxy. Out here, the map simply runs out before the mysteries do. The Ghoul Stars. Deep within the Halo Stars is one of the most feared subregions in the Imperium, and it's worth zooming in. The Ghoul Stars sit so far from Terra that the Astronomicon barely reaches them, making warp travel unreliable and communication difficult. Countless expeditions have ventured into the Ghoul Stars over the millennia, and many were never heard from again. Explorers have encountered the predatory Scyther Fiends, the eerie bone kingdom of Drazak ruled by the Flayed Ones, and the ruins of ancient human civilizations that disappeared long before the Imperium ever arrived. But the greatest mystery came during the 34th millennium with the Pale Wasting. Imperial records describe a star-spawn plague, nightmare engines, and horrors so terrible that entire Space Marine chapters were nearly wiped out trying to stop them. The Death Spectres chapter has spent generations guarding the borders of the Ghoul Stars, standing watch against whatever still lurks beyond Imperial space. Nobody has gathered enough reliable info to give this place a proper survival rating. That probably tells you everything you need to know. The Maelstrom. The Eye of Terror gets most of the attention, but it's not the only warp storm that's been causing problems for the Imperium. Between Segmentum Ultima and Segmentum Tempestus lies the Maelstrom, another massive tear in reality that has swallowed fleets and hidden entire star systems for thousands of years. Unlike the Eye of Terror, the Maelstrom isn't controlled by chaos alone. Hundreds of inhabited systems are within its shifting borders, cut off from the rest of the galaxy by violent warp storms. Over the millennia, pirates, orc freebooters, chaos warbands, and countless renegades have turned these isolated worlds into strongholds that are almost impossible for the Imperium to eliminate. The Maelstrom is also where one of the Imperium's greatest civil wars came to an end. During the Badab War, Luft Huron, chapter master of the Astral Claws, rebelled against Imperial authority and fought loyalist Space Marine chapters for years. After his defeat, he fled into the Maelstrom, rebuilt his forces, and became Huron Blackheart, leader of the Red Corsairs, now one of the largest Chaos Space Marine warbands in the galaxy. Today, the Maelstrom remains one of the Imperium's biggest blind spots. Fleets can disappear into the storm for years, only to emerge somewhere else with pirates, orcs, or chaos forces right behind them. Beyond the Galactic Rim. Everything we've covered so far takes place inside a single galaxy. Once you reach the edge of the Milky Way, the stars start to thin out until there's almost nothing left. Beyond that is the intergalactic void, an unimaginable stretch of darkness. The one thing we do know that came from out there is the Tyranids. Every hive fleet that has invaded the Milky Way crossed millions of light years of empty space before reaching our galaxy. Even stranger, they didn't all arrive from the same direction. The Silent King spent millions of years traveling through the void after the war in heaven. When he finally returned, he warned the Necrons about the Tyranids and began preparing for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. More recently, the opening of the Great Rift may have made things even worse. Modern Tyranid lore suggests the psychic shockwave echoed far beyond the galaxy, drawing even more hive fleets toward the Milky Way. That's what makes the Galactic Rim so fascinating. It's the point where Warhammer 40k stops giving us answers. The only confirmed visitors we've ever seen are the Tyranids, and if they're the first thing to arrive from another galaxy, maybe we shouldn't be in a hurry to meet whatever comes next. Thanks for watching until the end. Click here to check out another video and see you in the next one.